We're going to take a short look at legislative committee rules. Now, each standing committee of the California State Senate, there are 22 of them, and of the California State Assembly, there are 33 of them. They operate under the joint rules of the legislature, of course, as well as the standing rules of the Senate and the standing rules of the Assembly, respectively. Now, each standing committee is allowed to adopt rules governing the operation of their committees. And these committee rules are set forth usually in a standalone document, and they set forth the procedures and guidelines that are used to conduct the business of that particular legislative committee in the Assembly or the Senate. Now, these rules set forth things like the date, time, and location of the committee hearing, that a majority of the committee's members constitute a quorum, which allows the committee to officially operate, and the legislative committee rules contain a number of other similar provisions. And so let's just highlight some of them. The first is committee worksheets. When a legislative measure, a bill, a constitutional amendment, or a resolution is referred to a standing committee, then the committee staff generally provides the bill's author a worksheet, sometimes formally called a background information request. And it's to be completed as part of the preparation for the committee's analysis of that legislative measure. Another rule is on setting of bills. As a general rule, no bill may be set nor a daily file notice published until the bill has been referred to a committee. Now, there are some exceptions, such as when they are pending receipt due to a dual or triple referral. Now, once referred, the committee may set the bill for any available hearing date at its discretion generally, although that is done usually in coordination with the author's office. Recall that no bill may be heard or acted upon until 30 days after its introduction or on the 31st day. Now, this rule may be suspended under Section 8A of Article 4 of the California Constitution. File notices. A bill of first reference being heard in committee must be noticed in the daily file at least 4 days prior to its scheduled hearing date. Otherwise, notice is published in the daily file at least 2 days prior to the hearing. This requirement can be waived by a majority vote of either the Assembly or the Senate. 3, set limit. A bill may be set for hearing in a committee generally only 3 times. A bill is considered set when it's been noticed in the daily file for 1 or more days. Now, if the author postpones the hearing of a bill or submits amendments causing the hearing to be rescheduled, such an action generally may count as a set against the author. If the committee postpones the hearing on the bill, the action doesn't count as a set. Now, the 3 bill limit set or 3 set limit can be suspended by approval of the Rules Committee and a 2/3 vote of the Assembly or the Senate. Committee analyses. A committee analysis is required for every bill, resolution, or constitutional amendment, and analyses are generally made available to the public at least 1 working day prior to the hearing, with a working day being defined as any day on which the Assembly daily file is published or the Senate daily file. In the case of any special meetings, such as a special order of business or one that is not on a usual hearing date, analyses are usually made available to the public at the beginning of the hearing. The next item in committee rules is usually an order of agenda, and the general rule is that bills of the committee members are taken up after all other authors present have taken up their measures. The committee consent calendar may be taken up as determined by the chair, and when the chair finds that another order of business would be more expedient, measures may be taken up out of order or set as a special order of business by the committee chair. Another committee rule item concerns authors' representatives. If a bill is to be presented by someone other than the bill author or legislative measure author like a resolution or constitutional amendment, usually those are taken up after all present authors have been already accommodated. And then the representative must be an assembly member or senator, a member of the author's staff or staff of the Assembly or Senate committee. No lobbyist, sponsor, or supporter of a bill may present the bill before a committee. Staff or members other than the author wishing to present the bill must first provide the committee with a signed authorization letter from the measure's author. The next committee item is generally concerning amending of bills, and the usual rules are that when submitting amendments to legislative council for a bill that's in the possession of a committee or such a bill in the subsequent possession of the Assembly or Senate floors, then the author's office has to provide a copy to the committee as a courtesy. Author's amendments offered in committee, the general rule is that if an author offers amendments at the hearing and the amendments are substantive, the chair may put the measure over to allow adequate time for the committee staff to reanalyze the bill and provide an updated analysis to the members of the committee. The chair will determine whether or not an amendment is substantive, and committee staff are generally responsible for preparing any amendments adopted in the committee. Another rule concerns meetings, and all committee meetings, except for an authorized closed session, are open to the public, and all persons are allowed to attend those meetings. A special meeting can be held in an area readily accessible to the public and not in the chambers of the legislature, either the Senate or Assembly. And the committee must take care that every effort is made to inform the public that a meeting has been called. Limits on testimony are often included in committee rules. They basically provide that when it's necessary, due to the number or complexity of the bills on the agenda at a hearing, to limit testimony on one or more of the measures in order to ensure that all the measures on the agenda have a fair and reasonable opportunity to be presented and discussed by the committee. The chair, at his or her discretion, may limit testimony, the number of witnesses, etc. Also, the role of the vice chair is often mentioned. And so, if at a hearing that's commenced by the chair isn't present or might be presenting a bill to the committee, then the vice chair temporarily presides. If the vice chair is absent when the chair must be absent, the chair is allowed to designate another committee member to temporarily assume the duties of the chair. Voting, a quorum, of course, is required to conduct official business, and a majority of the entire committee constitutes a quorum, and a quorum is necessary to take action or to adopt amendments. Any vacancy on the committee does not reduce the number of votes required to take action on a bill or other legislative measure. The chair may at any time order a call of the committee and request the members to return. If requested by any member of the committee or the author of a bill, the chair may order a bill be placed on call. In these types of cases, the chair usually asks the sergeant at arms for those members who are absent and not excused by the assembly to attend. If a quorum is not present, the chair may commence the hearing as a subcommittee and receive testimony on any scheduled bill. A majority of the entire committee is required to report a bill out of committee and to the floor. Committee actions on bills, including reconsideration, are done by roll call vote, and the committee has to show all the votes for and against a measure, as well as members absent and members not voting. In the case of a tie vote, a motion fails, and the final action of the committee is announced by the chair. The making of motions. A member who desires to make a motion shall first obtain recognition by the chair. The member then opens by stating his or her motion and may not speak to the merits of the motion at that time, but confine any remarks to those that are necessary to explain his or her motion. If the motion is in order and it's seconded in the assembly, then the chair states this to the committee. In the Senate, only the motion needs to be made. A second is not required. If the motion is debated, the member who made the motion is recognized to open debate on the motion. For reconsideration, which is often mentioned in the committee rules, reconsideration of a bill may be granted only one time, and there are specified instances where a motion to reconsider can be made. Interim study and informational hearings. Sometimes a committee refers the subject matter of a bill to the Rules Committee for interim study by a majority of those present and voting, or it can be done by unanimous consent. The committee may, however, subsequently reconsider and act on a measure. In addition, the chair may call the committee to sit during interim or a recess to conduct public hearings, to gather information, discuss proposed legislation, or for any other proper purpose. It must be done upon approval of the Assembly Speaker or the Senate Rules Committee and publication of the appropriate 4-day file notice in either the Assembly or Senate daily files. Committee rules often discuss letters of support and opposition. The general rule is that letters communicating a formal position on a bill, support, oppose, concerns, etc., must be received by the by the committee by a specified date, often a week or more preceding the scheduled hearing date of the measure, in order for that position to be referenced in the committee analysis. Letters received after that time may be referenced at the discretion of the committee consultant. Public records. The committee secretary is the custodian of the committee's legislative records. The secretary preserves the committee's current legislative records and may store the committee's past legislative records with the state archives. The legislative records contained in an official committee file that are in the possession of either the Senate secretary or the Assembly secretary of the committee are open to inspection and reproduction at some reasonable cost by members of the public in the committee office, generally by appointment during normal working hours. The records held in the state archives are open to inspection and reproduction pursuant to the procedures established by the Secretary of State's office. And finally, committee bills. The general rule is that a committee may introduce a bill that's germane to any subject within the proper consideration of the committee in the same manner as any member can do so. A committee bill must contain the signature of a majority of the members of the committee, including the chair. And the committee, at the discretion of the chair, may consolidate related subject matters into a single legislative proposal whenever it's appropriate. So again, most committees of the California Legislature have adopted similar rules to those that I've outlined. However, each is free to adopt its own rules so long as those rules are not contrary to the standing rules of either the Senate or Assembly or of the joint rules of the legislature. And so that's a brief review of the major types of rules that are contained in individual committee rules.